4 reasons you're not progressing in the gym as a beginner or intermediate training age. These 4 things I see are probably the most common things of when guys come to work with me, or when I have a look at somebody's training program, or I'm looking at, or they're talking me through their training history. These are probably the most 4 common reasons why I see as to why guys aren't progressing in the gym. Now, let me state again, this is for beginners or of an intermediate training age. If you're an advanced, this definitely does not apply to you. But let me also state that most people who think they are an advanced trainer are not. Let's say you've been training in the gym for 10 years. Unless you've been training intelligently for those 10 years, the likelihood is you could probably still be a beginner or maybe in that intermediate training age. And lifting intelligently, well, how would I define that then? Let's say for an advanced trainee, that'd be 2 years of lifting intelligently. So making sure you're using progression models in your training, you're lifting at the correct load, you might be just doing some percentage work. What it will not be is you showing up at the gym every week and winging your workouts or following random programs you found online or creating programs in your iCloud notes that you're not sure why you're doing what you're doing. Most people will still be stuck in that beginner intermediate training age. Most people will start at the gym, get their newbie gains, which will always happen in the first 6 months where it's kind of at the easiest to build muscle mass, and then never move past this stage. So with today's video, I'm going to highlight the 4 reasons why you're not progressing and why you're stuck in either that beginner or that intermediate training age. Okay, so the first one is consistency. And the reason why I'm saying consistency is if you have the best program in the world where everything is accounted for, your load, your volume, you work into RPEs, all of it, it's all taken into consideration, and you're scheduled in to train, let's say 5 days per week, but 1 week you go 5 sessions, the next week you go 3, the following week you do 4, the following week after that you do 2, and you keep missing sessions, then you're not going to make progress. You need to be consistent with your training. And it doesn't matter how many times a week you train. If you're training twice a week, 3 times a week, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, you need to make sure for that week that you complete those training sessions. And obviously, as you start to become more advanced in your training age, as you're starting to go from, I'd like to think of it as a spectrum, as you start to really move out of that beginner stage and more into that intermediate stage, then yes, obviously you are going to need to increase volume and you will need to train more. But the most important thing is that you are consistent. If you are not consistent with your training, then you are never going to progress. Okay, let's go on to the second part. So number 2 is effort. I see so many people in the gym who are not training anywhere near as hard as they could be. And that doesn't mean that you have to be throwing up or you can't walk down the stairs the next day or that you're having to scream down the gym or anything like that. But you need to be training close enough near to failure in order for you to build muscle mass. So if you're not training with the right effort, and what I mean by that is, let's say me and you were at the gym now. Let's say you were on a barbell bench press, okay? Real simple exercise. Let's say your prescribed rep range was 8 to 12 reps and you've done your 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, you finished off, but on that last set, let's say I went to you, right, let's take that to failure. And you pushed out 25 reps or something like that. Well, then quite obviously, for those 2 sets that you've done beforehand, we should have been lifting probably a heavier weight so we were close enough to failure. Whereas I see a lot of people will be lifting a lot lighter weights than they should be. And I think there's a few things. I think, yes, partly does come down to effort, but also probably down to confidence as well. So next time you're in the gym, the weights that you're lifting, just give everything a bit of a push. Try and lift a little bit heavier. Make sure that you are going close enough or to failure on some of your movements. Okay, so the third one is technique, and I've put in brackets proficient because another common thing that I often see is that people are chasing mastery level technique, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that a lot of people stop putting the weight up on exercises or stop giving stuff a nudge or going close enough near to failure because they're worried about their technique breaking down. Your first rep should not look the same as your last rep. Technique should break down a little bit along the way, and that should be due to the load that you are lifting. So as much as, yes, technique is important, and when I refer to technique, what I mean more, this is, let's say, for instance, with your squats, we should be looking to go to the appropriate range of motion for yourself. Now, for most people, I would argue that a full range of motion, but obviously now we've got some of the long length partial stuff coming out, which again, I wouldn't apply to compound movements, so I wouldn't apply to maybe a squat or a bench press, but I would obviously put those onto the calf raises and stuff like that. But if you're a beginner and intermediate, you probably don't need to be worrying too much about that. What I would say is for most people, their technique is one of the things that are holding them back. They're not using a full range of motion, or they're not working the correct muscles when they're doing the exercise that's supposed to be because of poor form. And this could again be ego lifting where they're trying to go too heavy, or again it could be that we're just going short on reps on the movement. Okay, so the last one where I see a lot of people go wrong is volume. So one of the main things in order for us to be building muscle mass is our volume that we're lifting. Now when I'm saying volume, I'm referring to sets over the week, and obviously if we wanted to build muscle mass, then we need to be lifting certain sets per muscle group on a weekly basis. Now, depending upon what that is, it's going to be very individual to yourself, but there are specific guidelines, obviously for a beginner, if we're an intermediate, or if we're an advanced trainer. And again, these are going to vary from time to time, depending upon what you are training for and what you are doing. But volume is probably one of the main areas where I see beginners and intermediates getting stuck. And it's usually a case of they're either not doing enough volume or that they're probably doing too much. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how can you do too much volume if you wanted to grow your muscle mass? Because there is a sweet spot. You want to be lifting the right amount of sets in order for you to be building muscle mass. What we don't want to be doing is far overreaching that number, because eventually we are going to hit a ceiling. And we want to think about all the time with us training, whether it's volume, whether it's the weight that we're lifting or whatever it is, we just kind of want to be pushing that threshold a little bit in order for us to be able to keep pushing, rather than just trying to jump to that end goal with either the load that we're lifting or the volume that we're lifting. So what you will notice about this bar volume, I've not spoke about load, I've not spoke about exercise selection, I've not spoke about progressive overload. There's so many things that I've not spoken about, which a lot of people would consider first. And while that is true, especially if you are in that top end of an intermediate going into an advanced training age, I think for a lot of beginners and a lot of people who are in the early intermediate stage, they need to make sure they're focusing on these 4 things. Once these 4 things are in place, then we can start to nail some of the other important big rocks as well. But for me, these are probably the ones these are what set the foundations for most people. So let me quickly recap this. So 4 reasons you're not progressing in the gym as a beginner or an intermediate trainee. Number 1, you're not consistent with your sessions. 1 week you'll train 5 times, 1 week you'll train 3 times. You need to find the right amount of sessions that you can hit each week and stick to that. Number 2, effort. Are you training hard enough? Could you be lifting heavier weights? Are you lifting close enough near to failure? You need to be making sure that not every session, but majority of your sessions, you are lifting with a lot of effort. Number 3, you need to make sure your technique is proficient. You don't have to be world-class mastery level, but you need to make sure you're proficient so that you are either using a full range of motion and that we are working the correct muscles. We're not ego lifting and we're not half repping movements. And the final one is you need to make sure you're lifting enough volume that is appropriate for you. So we don't want to be overshooting past that because we don't need to, or we don't want to make sure we're not doing enough in order for us to grow muscle. We want to be hitting that sweet spot, and then when we have to increase it, we can do, but we don't want to be jumping right to the end or not doing enough. Okay guys, hopefully that's helped out. If you do have any questions on any of that, please leave them in the comments below, or obviously shoot me a message on Instagram.